Bridge Services, and he is in this position for the past 1 year, 7 months. The key responsibilities in his role includes on-demand financial and business advisory for startups, new process implementations, and business monitoring using data analytics and artificial intelligence. He is an advisory around blockchain applicability and its implementation. He is the force behind driving startups to profitability through fiscal discipline and scalable models, provides transaction support to mergers and acquisitions activity. When we look at his past achievements, he was the founder and director of Money Gurukul Academy, which he held, is currently having a position over there. So where he deals in specific disciplines such as personal finance, skill development, and career builder. He has been associated with several startup companies. He has been virtual CFO and startup evangelist. And it will take a lot of time for me to summarize his key achievements because I'm overwhelmed with his resume reading over here. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rajeshwari.
Hope our students will be able to gain at least 1% of the knowledge which you possess from this webinar, and they will have a disciplined approach towards managing their finance in future. Welcome, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Just to, let you know a little bit, about what we're going to do this session. All through our life, we have been studying, we have been learning, we have been, working. We just move on with our lives, right? But do we really pay attention to what is happening with money? What is happening to our money? Money comes, money goes. I mean, your parents might have been saying this, or, you might have heard other people just saying this, money just keeps coming and going. I'm not, saving enough. I'm not making enough. I should get more income. My expenses are always rising. So basically, we need to kind of, as a generation, I'm looking forward to, your generation putting a stop to all this. We can't keep, our mind on money all the time. When you're, kids, when you're doing school, when you're doing starting off college, and now you're completed college nearly. So you see that, you've been learning. Why is that learning? That learning is happening because you're not thinking about money all the time. Money is a single most thing that touches everybody's life today. Everybody are just thinking about money, talking about money. How much money am I going to make? How much money am I going to make? Not really, understanding what it is. We are more, interested in the peripherals of money rather than understanding what is the core of money. What is the thing called money? If you go and understand that, then if you understand that early in life, then a lot of our life becomes a lot easier. So my venture, Money Gurukul Academy, is more to educate people about money. I've been dealing with corporates and executives so far, and for the last year or so, based on our experience, we feel that these people come and says, "Oh, I wish I had known that when I started working, or at least a couple of years into working." So now we are actually going to colleges and trying to enable these people who actually start working, and probably it is your generation that is going to change at least India's outlook about money. So that's where we are starting here. So if you have any questions or any doubts or anything, you can put it in the chat window here. I understand I love to actually answer one-on-one, which I will do at some point of time when we get a chance. But for this meeting with 100 people, I mean, this is the first time I've actually seen my Google account getting locked out. So that's great. So it may be hard for me to answer one-to-one, but please feel free to put your questions in the chat window, and I'm happy to take one of them if you have time. Otherwise, prepare answers and circulate it to all of you. So having come to this, let me take you through a small presentation that I have made, so that we can understand what we are talking about. Okay, so the first question is, now what we are talking about is personal money. Okay, there are two kinds of money. One is, there are many MBA finance students here. So shortly, you're going to be managing other people's money. Okay, which is, you'll be managing the money that are there in companies. You're going to be managing cash in, some other organizations. But here we are talking about personal money. That is how you manage your own money. Whether you're getting your salary, your stipend, your this thing, how do you manage, or how do you understand that? So if you have to manage anything, you first have to understand it, right? If you can't understand something, how do you manage it? So first, let us understand what is this thing called money? Why we even talk about money? What is money? So for that, let us understand how this money came into existence. Obviously, it is not a part of evolution. Darwin's theory of evolution never talks about money. So there is a particular history of money. How did money actually come into existence? Some of you may actually know this, but it is important for each of you to go through this, so that you manage money with this mindset. See, one is having information. Second thing is applying the right information at the appropriate time. If you cannot apply the information or knowledge that you have at the right time, that knowledge doesn't become useful. So basically, I would encourage all of you, even if you know this or do not know this, you pay attention to how money has evolved, and based on how money has evolved, you can learn to manage money. Like typically when you meet somebody for the first time, or it's a little early for you, this is something which I keep telling the corporate, when you're getting married, or you do some background check, right? You check where that person is from, what is the kind of culture, what are their likes. Just develop a better understanding. Similarly, just let's try and get an understanding about money. How did this thing called money come into existence? I'm sure a lot of you have heard about barter system. Okay, before money came into existence, there was nothing called money before, right? So people used to carry on some, but remember, economics was always there. Economics was there from when man or woman started to work. But money came into existence much later. Okay, so initially people used barter system. All of you must be familiar with barter system. They just exchange goods. Something like, what kids do in their kindergarten or a little later, right? I like this toy, you like this toy. And they exchange. Barter system. That is, they exchange what they have with what they need. So what they have, the important thing with what they have is that they have it, but they do not need it. Or they need something more than what they have. So for example, a farmer grows rice, and there is a milkman who produces milk for his from his cows, or from his farm. So you have one bag of rice and you need milk. So you have to go about finding another person. Not only that, you find a person who's giving milk, but you also have to, in exchange of milk, you have to give him rice. So that person has to need rice. If he doesn't want rice and he has milk, then the whole thing becomes a waste again, right? So you have to go finding people who not only are producing milk, but they need rice so that you can exchange. So this is the difficulty people were dealing with at that time. Okay. If exchange of gifts, even we go today, right? We go somewhere, we carry a gift, there is a return gift return. All these are like, historical things that happen, because each time, you take something that, you have, but you don't typically need, go give it to the other person, because that person has abundance of something else, they exchange it. And this custom of carrying gifts for all occasions originated from that time. Even today, we follow that. I'm not sure how much it's being active now, but from last 1 hour check, there is always we always have a custom of carrying gifts wherever we go, and this is something that's across the globe. If you have seen, it is not unique to India. It is not unique to Asia or any particular country or any particular culture. We all like to carry gifts wherever we go. Okay, and there used to be actual markets to facilitate this exchange. I don't know if you're familiar with things like farmers market and stuff, where there used to be a huge market which people used to assemble on Sunday. They used to just come land up there with all that they have, and they keep looking around things what they need, and accordingly they exchange. Okay, many of you are familiar with customs duty on international trade. That is when you pay customs duty on import. So whenever you import something, you have to pay customs duty, right? It originates to the time of barter. So at that time, whenever anybody used to come to a new country, they used to carry a lot of things which belong to their country. They used to deposit some stuff with the gatekeeper at that point of time, which is given to the king's treasury or that government's treasury. And any territory you enter into, it's a custom to bring death. That's why it's called today also, it is called as customs duty. Even after GST has been introduced, we still have custom duty. So this is where we see a huge problem here. As most of you might have noticed, people used to live like this. So what has happened now? Now we need to solve all these problems. I can't keep looking out each time I have some rice. I'm producing rice, but I can't keep going out. I go to one person asking vegetables and ask him, do you need rice? I asked another person, giving milk, and it's a you need rice. And, I want to, buy something else from my house. I want a chair. I wanted this thing. I can't keep going there, right? So that is where we have this thing called money. Now we decided, let us not do this. I may need milk, somebody else may need rice, and the third person may need the third thing, right? So how do we connect all these aspects? So that is how we come with money. So the same market exists the same, the people are the same, the transactions are the same. But instead of goods moving from one place to another, we decided one small coin, or nowadays it's notes. That time we used to have these coins, and they used to represent actual value. So if you remember, if you have read the old stories, they always used to talk in terms of gold coins or silver coins. So why do they talk about gold coins or silver coins? The actual value of that is represented by the amount of metal or whatever is there in that particular coin. Today it is all paper. But when originally money was invented, they used to have this particular piece of metal, which is called as a coin or a currency, to actually facilitate. And that particular currency can be given to the king, or any other market would accept that. It would have the king seal, it would have the king, and it is a representative of that particular location. Let me just pause here for a minute and let me see if there are any questions to take. Just 1 second, guys. Okay, I don't see any questions. So I presume all of us are going pretty well so far. Okay, if you have any questions, please keep posting it back here so that I can, I will pause every now and then and look at those questions. Okay, now let's get into more details about money. So I understand as MBA students, most of you would have understood demand and supply, right? Demand and supply of goods, higher the demand, higher the price, lower the demand, and all that. I presume you have learned all that in your first year itself, or even before joining MBA. So now we come across a concept called as demand for money. Some of the students who have studied forex markets and other things would have understood this concept as well. But I want you to understand this concept from a perspective of personal money. You might have studied this in context of, global economy, national economy, or the central bank or the currency. But look at this concept from basically the personal money perspective. So let's look at it very, very simply. Demand for money. Why do we demand money today? Okay. Fundamental thing is that we do transactions. Okay. There are three aspects. Fundamentally, what we just spoke, we need money, we need rice. So there is a transactive motive. Second aspect is a precautionary motive. Okay, precautionary motive is something that you're trying to safeguard. We will get into each one of these details. Third aspect is the more dangerous aspect, speculative motive. Okay, so let's start with transactive motive. So transactive motive is basically your motivation to hold money is for doing transactions, which is what actually money is meant for. Okay, so you have a bunch of things with you that you don't need, you have, but you don't need. So you go sell it. So when you sell it, you get money. With that money, what you do? You look for what you need. So the whole transaction becomes a lot easier by, you're basically delinking what you have and what you need. So you have a person here who is, which is called money, which basically works like a courier agent for you. Okay, it is able to work with somebody that, who needs your stuff, and somebody else who, has stuff that you need. So this meeting is happening because of transactive motive. So this was the own and only intention of money as it came about. Okay. But as we see, if money had only remained a medium of exchange, we wouldn't be having this conversation today, right? We don't need to manage money. Life would be very, very simple. But unfortunately, that is not to be. It's basically because now, after we are done with the transactive aspect, okay, you have given up all what you have, and you have all got money. And then you have gone about, buying stuff that you need. And after that, you have money left. So once this happened, once man started seeing money left with him, he started using that for power. And now that is the fundamental cause of why we all need to study money. So there is money left, and this money, I do not need it now. I do not need it today. So what do I do with this money now? So naturally, man first started thinking that, when you have this money, I will use it for tomorrow's expense. Probably I don't have to work tomorrow. Maybe I need to run to the doctor. Normally I tell the doctor, sir, doctor, I don't have, enough bags of rice. I'll give you later or something like that. So, but now I can have this money. I can save this money. I can stash this money away. So whenever I have a medical emergency, I can go to the doctor whenever I want. Whenever, I have a place where I don't have money tomorrow, I have the ability to take precautions. Okay, so when I have the ability to take precautions, that is one aspect of dealing with money. Now, what has happened when I do that for 30 days or few months, that becomes a habit. I am continuously making more and more money every day, and that is how if I am making rice, everybody starts to make rice. You would have seen in your MBA classes on demand and supply. There is high demand. People are willing to pay more. So the market dynamics started coming into play. Once the money started coming into play, this concept of rich and poor started developing. So whatever was perfectly normal, somebody is producing milk, somebody is producing rice, those two people were perfectly equal. An ideal, socialist system was intrinsically there. Now with this money coming into the picture, that equation started changing. So the reason I'm bringing this to your notice is that this precautionary demand for money, everybody will not be able to demand it, because the market has started valuing their product. Telling there are so many people producing this. So before, when this particular issue was taken care of by the market itself, now this particular aspect is being taken care of by money. So coming back to what you are doing, now you want to take more precautions. So there is a complete line of study that comes from the precautionary demand for money. Now, after you have taken all your precautions, you still have more money left. Okay, I am going to put 10 gold coins away in case I need any medical emergencies. I am going to put another 10 gold coins away for my food for every month, cost me say 1 gold coin. Another 10 months of money I have with me. Now, what do I do with the rest of the money now? So now you have taken care of your transactions. You have taken care of your transactions for tomorrow. You have taken some precautions. Now the third aspect is called speculative demand for money, which all of you would have studied, in your chapters on money. Now this is what we need to again apply to our personal finance. So speculative demand for money is, okay, now I want just this money to make more money for me. I want to work less, or I want to continue working, or I want to stop working. Now I have so much money, I should not have to work, and others can work for me through this money. So I put this money in different places and get people working. So this is capital, for the people taking the money. This is speculation that I am undertaking. I am undertaking speculation so that I can make significantly more money out of this. So now these three aspects actually define all the aspects, which you need money for. As on today, there are three aspects for demand for money. And as a consumer, whenever you ask yourself for money, it will fall into these three aspects. If it does not fall into these three aspects, please write to us. We would love to do further research. We are also a research-oriented organization. We keep, as money keeps evolving, we will also keep evolving ourselves. So it is great. Any of you can find another aspect to it. But understand this in detail: transactive, precautionary, speculative. So when you understand, when you demand money, or when you are asking for money, or when you need money, if you put the money into these three buckets, your expectation will be, a lot clearer, and you will be able to manage it much better. So let's now get deeper into these aspects. Just doing a time check. I think Ms. Geetanjali or Rajeshwari, can you tell me how are we doing on time?
It's 30 minutes past 10, sir. 10:30.
Fine. Okay, great. Let me just look for a minute. Are there any questions? Sir, in general, people give more importance for money rather than good relation, or they won't respect people. Why? It's very clear, as I just explained to you, right? So when somebody was producing milk and somebody was producing rice, as long as both of them were equal, they equally respected people. Now, because we found this thing called money, now we've started giving more and more importance to money rather than, people. And this is extremely damaging for us itself, because we do not, what our ability to earn doesn't depend on money. It depends on people. Correct? So when you don't respect people, or when people don't respect people, we do not have to really worry about that. What is important for us is that what are we doing? If you're worried about others, we will always keep being worried about others. So in general, let's not talk about people. If you say, sir, in general, I give more importance to money than I respect people, then we have a problem. But if you say that in general, each people have their lives, their things, so why should we generalize people? So when we give importance to people, so you say, I will give importance to people more than money, that is all that you can control. And when you study money also, you have to very clearly understand what you can control, what you cannot control. So my advice to you today is, don't worry what other people do. Don't worry about what other people have. Don't worry about what other people do. Focus on yourself, what you can do. Okay, so now let's go back to demand for money. So now we are using the macroeconomic term demand for money. So just like we have, demand and supply for goods, we have demand and supply for money as well. Okay, so later when you study macroeconomics, or some of you might have already studied that, you understand, demand and supply. So let's look at, how money goes into these aspects only. Okay. So transaction is very simple to understand. We go and buy groceries, we have to travel to work, we have to buy clothes, and we just pay money for all these things. What's important here you need to understand is that intrinsically or extrinsically, you know the value that you're buying. Okay. So if you have earned the money, it is 100, 200, 1000% sure that you will spend that money with caution. So you know what is happening there. You know how much rice costs. You know how much dal costs. You know how much, the bus fare to your school is, or your college is. You know exactly how much the taxi fare to your work is. You know typically which is the cheapest clothes, which is the expensive clothes, what you want to buy. Transaction motive is very much understandable. You understand what you are paying for. Okay, and while you are paying, you have these benefits. So, but what is it that we have to watch out for, while doing transactions? So, this is another example. So when you buy a mobile phone, you're all college students, I'm sure all of you have multiple mobile phones, if not one. You do a lot of research, right? This phone has this feature, that phone has that feature, what feature I need, whether this phone, has connectivity, it has 3G, 4G, 5G, whatever. We actually do a lot of research. And you use your experience, you use others' experience, you check with your friends, you check with your, with the shop guy also. I've seen these college students going on talking with, store vendors. What is it? You read online reviews. This is what is called as research. And if you understand the value of money, you will definitely do that research before you spend it. But even with all this knowledge and experience, there is one big challenge. We make impulsive purchases. Whenever you have gone to a bookstore, I'm not talking about any other store. You have gone to a bookstore. When you're standing in the, billing counter, you'll typically find, some chocolates there, some gums, some batteries, or, some things there, lying. So why is a bookstore selling chocolates or gums? Answer is very simple. They just want to tap into your impulse. So you are standing like 2 to 3 minutes in a queue. You're not going to buy, a research book on money when you are standing in that counter. What is that immediate thing that you will make a decision within 3 minutes? Of course, chocolates is such an easy decision to make, right? Go and buy chocolates or gums. So these are things that keep happening around to tap into your impulse. The minute you search for, some item in Google, you will be given a number of choices. Basically, it is tapping into your impulse. So if they are able to tap into your impulse, then they've made the sale. And the challenge for you is that you might have bought it whether you need it or not. This is the only aspects. If you take care of your impulses, then simplistically speaking, you would have been covered with transactions. Okay. So transactions is basically just about, transactions is basically only about covering your emotion called impulse. If you're able to cover that impulse, you will never have a challenge in managing money from a transactive perspective. Now, why is this important? Now, here I'm going to spend, next 5 minutes, I'm going to explain basically the difference between, the rich and the poor. Let me just take a poll here. What do you think makes a person rich, or what do you think makes a person poor? I will just give exactly 3 minutes to see if there is something that I can see in the chat window. I will just ask this question to all of you. What do you think makes a person rich or poor? Is it that most of you are logged on through your phone? I don't see any responses yet. Thinking ability, control over their emotions about buying, mindset, satisfaction of level of a person. Excellent. All these are wonderful. Let me just give some structure to what all of you have just said. So the basic structure here is, when you say emotions, when you say impulse, why should we guard against all this? Now, there is a simple difference between a rich person and a poor person. Normally, this I take it, later in the the courses, but I will want to introduce you to this, seeing the looking at the demographics of where we are right now. So your financial life typically goes into 4 different aspects. Okay, one is income, the money that you make. Second is expense, whatever you need to spend. Third is liability, whatever we need to borrow. We'll get into all those things, much later if you get a chance. And the fourth aspect is asset. What is it that comes to your mind? So, if you get extra money today, what is it that first comes to your mind? Let me just put that question to all of you. Well, what comes first to your mind if you get say 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees extra today? So the people who think I can spend this additional 2,000 rupees on something are the kind of people who will typically be, where they have expenses increasing when their income increases. If your income increases, then your expense increases. That is poor people. Rich people is when that income increases, their asset increases. If your mindset, somebody spoke about mindset, if your mindset is to increase your asset, they are rich. If your mindset is you increase the expense, you are poor. No matter what wealth you have, you might be having crores and crores of rupees of money with you. But if your mindset is on spending more, that person will be poor. If your mindset, you might be having nothing today, but in your mindset, whenever you get money, if you're thinking about increasing your assets, now that is a rich person. So a rich person will eventually get rich. So if you'd have seen people, right? He has so much money, but why is he still, traveling economy? Or, he has so much money, why is he still, living like that? He basically lives like that for a very simple reason. He is rich. He is rich basically because he is focused on asset creation. That is how people keep building more and more and more and more assets. Because their mindset is always on asset creation. But mostly when we see the mindset of 90% of the people, we see they are looking at how they can increase their expenses, how I can buy a more later phone, how I can buy, the latest car, how I can have, some fancy things. So this is where it's very important about transactive demand, because what you can save in the transactive demand is what increases your asset base. So this is kind of, I'm going away from what I had planned, but, looking at, some of the responses I've got and the kind of thinking, I thought this is something that, you should know. While we come back, let's come back and, look at the other two aspects in more detail. Now let's get into precautionary demand. We have discussed earlier, right? We want to keep money for tomorrow's expenses. We want to keep money for medical emergencies. Now, while you have this emotion, you have this fear, there is a certain aspect of fear, because there is an aspect of uncertainty. This uncertainty causes fear. Now, this fear is what gives rise in the first place to the precautionary demand of money. So, though it originated to solve the transactional aspect, now leave about the money's, our transactive aspect. Now we are moving more and more into the precautionary aspect. And it is our fear that is driving this particular aspect. It is not what is needed. It is not what is necessary. But we have a particular aspect of fear that is driving us to this precautionary demand. So the point here you need to keep is that just like, you are guarding yourself against impulse in transactionary aspect, you need to guard yourself against fear in the precautionary aspect. Okay, so what are we actually doing? We are trying to actually buy out uncertainty. We feel uncertain in our minds. This particular demand is caused basically due to certain uncertainty that is playing into in our minds, right? We are not sure that we'll get money every day. We are not sure that whether there'll be a medical emergency. So this uncertainty instills fear. Now this fear, we are trying to buy out this uncertainty. Okay, in effect, we are not buying something outside. We are buying our own fears. We have created our fear and we have gone and bought them. So the more fearful we are, the bigger will be, we put a bigger price on them. So how do you actually put a price on it? Your own fear. Okay, so just like you have to guard against impulsive purchases, whenever there is something that is coming to precautionary demand, you need to really guard yourself against fear. Okay, and that is where money gets a little complex. Can you let me know, one industry that thrives because of all the fear that we have due to this precautionary demand? I'll give 30 seconds for this. Can somebody tell me what is that industry that just runs basically just because of this particular, precautionary demand for money? Excellent, excellent. Medical, health, beautiful. Okay, we're gone. So there is one industry which is medical industry, obviously, because previously we used to go to doctors. I don't know if this generation is known as. We used to actually go to doctors. We used to wait on in a long queue, and it used to take a lot of time for us to actually even get an appointment. Today you have people coming to home and doing tests for you. Precaution. Nothing wrong, guys. Don't get me wrong. Nothing wrong in taking precautions. But these precautions should be consciously taken from our mind, and these should not be driven by fear. That is always the point here. Okay. So money gets more and more complex because we are just not transacting. Now we have a fear and we are trying to put it into this thing. It's just like how some of you have said, medical industry today thrives on fear. Not quite on. And is it, do I mean that medical industry is not necessary? Absolutely not. We need them. We need best of doctors. We need best of this thing, but they should work on our bodies and not on our fear. Now coming to the third point, now let's look at this speculative demand for money. So you have taken care of, you have taken a hefty insurance. You've doing your health checkups, everything is all happening now. Fine. Now, what do you do with the rest of the money? So you start demanding more money. It says, I'm not happy with the money I've got. I've taken care of all my transactions. I've taken care of all my precautions, but still I am not happy. So then I want more. So I want more. If I get that more, what will I do with it? I will go about investing. I'll invest in real estate. I will invest in gold. I will invest in shares in companies. So this is basically speculation. Again, not a bad thing. You have to understand why you're doing this. So as long as you understand that you're going to be doing speculating, because you assume you have a house. Now, people you have seen today, right? People are not happy with one house. They want to have multiple houses. They want to have a house in different states, different cities. They want to have the houses in different countries. Why? Because we feel the value of the house will increase. So they buy another house, you invest in stock, you buy gold, and you are just continuously speculating in a bid to make an insane amount of money. So while you're doing this, what is that we should be careful about? We are expecting money to practically procreate. I throw in some money that should just give us more and more and more money. I mean, it's not bad to call it greed, right? So we have understood now transactive demand for money. We have understood we have understood transactive. We have now understood precautionary demand for money. Now, thirdly, we understand what is called a speculative need for money. So while you are doing your transactions, you should guard against impulse. If you are talking in binary, rich and poor, rich people guard themselves very well against impulse while they are doing transactive motive. While you're doing precautionary motives, so in precautionary motives, you guard yourself very well against fear. You will take all those precautions, but you will guard yourself against fear. And this is the emotion you need to take care of. Thirdly, when we talk about speculative, rich people always guard themselves against against greed. So if you're looking at, people and the kind of insurance policies which people buy, it is just, due to fear that they buy the insurance policy. There is a particular emotion that drives them to buy the insurance policies, and not proper math and not proper, education as far as money is concerned. The third aspect which we spoke about, we see a lot of money making money in the stock market. We see a lot of people losing money in the stock market, right? It keeps happening all the time. Why do 95% of the people who are in the stock market lose money? And they're all middle class, lower middle class, or common people like you and me who just get into the stock market and they actually lose money. Why? Basically because of greed. Even if you're not greedy, that doesn't give you a guarantee. But the fact is that the more the greed, there is much higher likelihood of losing money. So to summarize, I think we're just about running out of time. To summarize, I would like to make these following points very clear. So we keep saying, right, the rich is getting richer all the time and the poor are getting poorer all the time. The rich is bad, they are not, the government is bad, the government supports the rich. And I'm just not talking about this in India. I'm not trying to make a political statement as well. This happens across the globe. Across the globe, there is constant blame. But the fact is that the real reason why this happens is just that all of us will have to change our outlook towards money. We should look at money as a tool for our well-being. We should not be overwhelmed with fear when it comes to money. We should not be overwhelmed with greed when it comes to money. We should guard against our impulses. And all of us can be in this same track, and all of us will be in the rich category, as long as, very simply, you have to be thinking about asset creation more than incurring expenditure. So I think I will stop here and I will throw it open for some questions in the chat window. Beautiful. Some people have also given insurance when I said. Basically, yes, medical and the insurance industries are the most dangerous when it comes to milking our precautionary elements of precautionary aspect of money. Okay, back to you, Rajeshwari ma'am, and I would just request students to post questions in the chat window.
Students, the forum is open for question and answers. If you have any sort of questions, you can speak to sir. Okay.
So typically what happens is, Rajeshwari ma'am, that
Yes,
the first question, somebody has to ask the first question.
Okay, let me ask, sir.
Questions follow. So yeah, that's the way it works normally. So request you, who's going to be the first student to ask a question? And
Let me take the lead, sir.
beautiful, he's got it. I've got someone. That's right.
Okay.
So is it better to invest money or save money? Such as age, expenses, and income. Okay, 1 second, sorry. Is it better to invest money or save money? So see here again, you just need to put your mind to one thing. So why are you demanding money now? You're demanding money. If you're investing, that means it's speculative. Saving. So what is your state of mind? Do you want to take precautions, or do you want to be speculative? So if you answer this question yourself, whether it is not about, what is better, it is about your state of mind, Akshay. Do you want to be precautionary right now, or you want to invest right now? So early in my career, I always started off being precautionary first. I first take care of my transactions. There is no point doing anything. I'm not going to starve, to become rich. Right? So first I will take care of my expenses. I will take care of my food. I will take care of my clothing. I will take care of my, roof over the head. I would like to have, a decent house to live. I may not be an exotic house. I need to have a decent, place to live. So first, I will always take care of that. So to that, if you have to save money, you have to this thing. That is where you do. Investing comes the next aspect. So basically it depends on what is your mindset at this point of time. Amit Bajaj, how to manage money with several constraints such as age, expenses, and income. Amit, it's largely the mindset. We have people. What is the mindset that you carry and that you want to live your life? If you continuously feel that, that I need a better vehicle, I need a better car, I need a better, transport, or I need a better mobile phone, I need a better computer, that is still fine. But now, is the computer, like for example, for me, I need a good computer all the time so that I can, my work can happen faster. I don't have to keep wasting time. I don't have to wait for files to load. Now that is an investment. So if I need a better computer that enables me to make more money, now that is an asset. But if I want a better computer to, just feel better, now that is an expense. So I hope I'm answering your question. All these constraints are all created by us. Nobody has given that constraint out there, right? These constraints are created by us. And if you have these constraints, then you have to earn. Are you earning to service your constraints, or are you earning to actually become rich? So this is a call that you need to take very early in your life. Am I working to meet my expenses, or am I working to, become rich? So if I'm working to become rich, there is no limit to becoming rich. In the sense, right? There is no point of time where you will stop. You look at any rich person in the world, you take up their this thing. There's never ever a point that they stop telling this is enough, because they are just in that process of asset creation. And there is no point in others complaining that there are people like that. It is not that they want money or they need money. It is only simple that they are rich. They know only to create assets.
Sir, can I step in here?
Yeah.
If we look into the recent developments or the the activities which people are taking, or as you put out, the rich people are taking to create new class of assets, the underlying emotion is always greed. But put it out positively, you show it as scaling up, or you show it as their creativity in coming out with this. So what is that differentiating line to tell? Is it greed, or it is positivity towards producing something productive?
Yes, that is not external, right? That is absolutely internal. That is really internal, to your mind. If you are creating assets, you know what it is. Now I'm talking about creating assets, I'm not talking about, investing in mutual funds, and I'm not talking about that we will get into. Obviously, you need a lot of knowledge to get there. But what is currently your mindset? I just asked that question, right? So if somebody throws money at you, what would you think? 90% of the people I've met, even in corporate, even the, in the salaried class, even people who have worked very hard for their money, the first thing they see some extra money, their mindset is to spend it. Anybody sees any money, extra money somewhere, they never are, if they have taken a loan or something, they may want to settle that loan, which is a great thing. That's what needs to be done. But the mindset which people see when they see some extra money is to immediately spend it. That is fine. All that thing is that then, you have to keep earning, because your expenses are only going to rise. There is inflation on other aspects. Expenses are rising anyway. But the mindset further increases expenses, right?
Yes.
So that mindset is what I'm talking about. I've seen people splurging, and I'm not talking about low middle class, or just the people young who always like to spend more. which is not necessarily a bad thing. But it is just that, then you don't complain that you will be rich. There are people who live happily like that. There are people who are thrilled to live, like, earn in the morning, spend in the night. You need a lot of daily wage learners. They are much happier than, what many other people are. Nothing wrong with it. But they never ever complain. Like, I've also started traveling quite a lot by autos these days. When I talk to those auto drivers, immensely happy people. They make money, they spend a day, they are immensely happy. They never talk about, building huge castles, or they never talk about, flying to, exotic locations. Nothing. And phenomenally happy. So, but you need to take charge. You need to understand, no, I am going to slog every day. Then don't complain about slogging every day. Like if you see, the so-called people who are making a lot more money, I wouldn't call them rich. Even after 30, 40, 50 years, they are always running and spending. There are people who are happy doing that, but a vast majority of them are not happy doing it. Now, that is what that needs to be corrected. Telling that, guys, you want to live your life day in, day out, first in, first out, great. But then don't come back and worry about something different. That is all is my point. You choose whatever line of things you want to do. You can change from one to other as well. There is no saying that, if you are here, you can't go there. If you're there, you're going here. But you mentally be very clear. The point here, Danu Reddy says, only if you can save, we can invest. No, investing is different. Saving is different. Saving means you save money. You don't expect any return out of that. And you're saving with a particular intention in mind. That is saving. Now, if you have some, like for example, you're saving for, your children's education, or, your parents have saved some money for you, that is not really investment. That is actually, that is like comes into this precautionary demand for money. I'm going to need money for this. I am collecting money so that I can spend on this particular aspect. That is not investment in any way. Okay, so and this is the way it's made out to be like an investment, but in reality it is not. You are planning a future expenditure. So planning a future expenditure is completely different from investing. Investing is that you are putting in some money so that you are not working, you are enabling somebody else to work on it. MBA finance students will know this very well, that you become, that land, labor, capital, you are starting to provide capital. So that is investment. If you are collecting, or if you are saving some money today to spend on something tomorrow, you save up a whole year to buy a mobile phone at the end of the year. Now that is clearly not investment. So please have this very, very clear in your mind that what your the money that you're saving for an expenditure is only an expenditure. That falls somewhere in between transactionary motive and precautionary motive. Investment means, as long as you are not greedy, you say that you have this money, you consciously decide you have this money to spare, and you invest in things that are outside your normal earning and spending. I hope that answers your question, Danu Reddy.
I think it's a long way for us as a country to come towards this conscious thinking. We have made a transition, but it is still a long way, because not many of us think from investing perspective, or not many of us think rationally about managing our personal finances. Students, any more questions? Sir, I have a question here.
Sure.
Since you have been into different places and involved in different startups, what do you observe the differences? Might it be culturally, or it might be demographically? So what kind of difference do you see with the Indian startup environment and others?
Okay. So Indian startup environment is very, very nascent right now. Okay, it's very, very basic. We still don't understand the startup culture too well. We have had some successes, which is great, but we still have a long way to go to, develop the attitude and the culture required for startups. So what happens in typically startups is that there is a particular breed of people, there is a particular group of people who really don't, for them, what money they make, what position they hold, all those things doesn't make a difference. They're just passionate about, so strongly and so intensely passionate about certain things, and they keep just pursuing that. That is a fundamental difference that I see when I look at the startups in the US, that there's a phenomenal amount of work that has gone into what they come up with, a product or something, that startup. So India is still very, very nascent in that thing, that people are learning, but we will get there. It will take time, but absolutely India is in the right direction to become very successful in startups. But just remember, there's an insane amount of effort that you need to put in before you decide to start up. Now in India, I see that realization is not coming yet. People think that they can start up and they can figure out. Yes, there are hundreds and thousands of things that you will figure out on the way. But before you figure that out, before you even start up, there is a fundamentally an insane amount of effort that you need to put in, to come up with something based on which you can start up. In fact, on this topic, I've also written a book called, Sack the Startup. So I'll see if I'll send you a copy for your library. You can probably use it, and students can refer that.
Sure, sir. Very kindful of you.
Sure.
Gitanjali ma'am?
Yeah, that was a wonderful presentation, sir. Very happy. And since our resource person is also a startup evangelist, and he has several startups where he is mentored and helped so many startups. So we also request you to do some kind of a briefing or a presentation on startups also. Maybe I'll invite some other day to brief our students. That is, again, we require a lot. Our students need such kind of information also. So thank you very much, sir. And it's been a long time. We wanted you to be part of this program for our students. And I'm really happy that you have accepted our invitation and delivered your presentation. And it was very simple and easy to understand. I hope students, everybody would have understood. If any questions students are having, they can still post, they can let me know. I can always put it across to sir, and he will definitely reply us back. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We'll be in touch, Gitanjali.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Rajeshwari ma'am?
Yes, yes, ma'am. So I would like to extend my heartily thanks to Mr. Banuda Satreya for making his precious time in delivering this wonderful lecture to our students. He could create, probably you can tell, a series from starting from barter system to economy, then molding the concepts which we look into global perspective to personal perspective, then defining what is the concept of rich and poor. See, basically we speak about rich are getting richer, poor are getting poor. This statement we make as a layman, but what goes in behind this statement no one knows. Probably sir has hit the bullseye in making us understand what does this statement actually mean. And very beautifully he had weaved the concept of emotion or impulses towards the three objectives, which our students will always study from getting 3 marks or 7 marks perspective in their examination, the motives. Really, so much would have gone into these motives. Even I had never given a thought about it. It was an eye-opener for me also. So thank you, sir, for this wonderful presentation. Hope we can have our association in future days so that our students as well as our faculty members are able to gain from your insights. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's great to be. I mean, I would love to always work with students. So while in startups, like I've been to these some of these colleges, like IIT Madras and all that, just to interact with the students and see what is the ultimately these guys are the future, right? So
Yes,
while we are still working on our futures, these guys can actually build out the future, of this country, and that is where we need where we need. So I'm going to be engaged with students like this, and feel free to reach out. Unfortunately, my website is down today. Otherwise, I would have given this to people to get some more inputs. But I will share that with you, Geetanjali, once it's up and running. So I'm working with the technical guys to get that up and running. So then it'll get yeah, it'll be a lot smoother for people to take this forward as well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
bye, sir.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye bye.
Students, fill in the feedback form before you exit.
Students, all of you can log out.